Hi, and welcome to Gym of the Hills. We're so glad you can be here with us this week. We have Dr. Mark Fagan from our Sociology and Social Work Department here as our guest today, but he is not limited to strictly that. He is involved in so many other avenues, not only with the university, but with the state and with the nation. So we're going to give Mark an opportunity to kind of give us a little bit of background information on you first, and let our viewers get to know a little bit about you before we get into all this other technical stuff.
Great. Well, I was born and raised in Calhoun County.
You're a homeboy, huh?
Graduated from Piedmont High School in 1970, came to Jacksonville State as a freshman, graduated from here in 1974 with a major in psychology and a minor in economics.
I need to point out, a JSU graduate. I always try to let folks know that we're proud of our graduates.
Sure.
Okay.
Worked some in psychiatric social work, went down to the University of Alabama and got a master's degree in psychiatric social work, and worked with Dr. N.R. Stallworth for a while doing some psychotherapy. Then went back to the University of Alabama and got a doctorate in social policy, planning, and administration, and a doctoral minor in human resources management in 1981. Then came back to Jack State to begin working on the minor in social work. Dr. Becky Turner and I came the same year, and we started teaching the minor in social work out of the Department of Sociology in those days, and we were able to get approval to offer a major in social work in 1988, and we actually had our first program graduates with a major in social work in the spring of 1988. We got our social work program accredited by the Council on Social Work Education, which is a national organization, in 1992, and we were reaffirmed again in 1996 for 8 years. So our program is fully accredited through 2004, and we have had approximately 700 graduates since that time, and we're now the largest undergraduate social work program in the state. And students that graduate from our program can be licensed to work in any aspect of entry-level social work. We have approximately 200 majors, and we're graduating about 75 a year now. So we're very proud of the program. We have relationships with a lot of the agencies in the region. As a matter of fact, about 20 of our students each year get to do paid internships when they do their practice social work, or we call it their field practicum.
That is awesome.
The East Alabama Regional Planning and Development Commission's Area Agency on Aging has our students in their supervision, and they have stipends. We have arrangements with DHR in Calhoun County and DHR in Etowah County, with the juvenile probation and family court, and plus we have students placed in hospitals and child welfare agencies all over the region, and so we're just very proud of our students and what they're doing.
That's wonderful. That is great. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we will be back to find out all that Dr. Fagan does, not only for Jacksonville State, but for the state of Alabama. So stay with us here on Gym of the Hills. And welcome back to Gym of the Hills. As I told you, we have Dr. Mark Fagan with us, who is the acting department head for our Sociology and Social Work Department here at Jacksonville State. And you have plenty to do here on campus, directing both of those departments and all of the things that combined department and all of the things that you have going on there. But you're also involved in some fascinating things involved with retirees.
In 1983, Mr. Pat Shaddix, who is the director for the Center for Economic Development here at Jacksonville State University over in our College of Commerce and Business Administration, was able to put together a research team of professors to go out into the counties in primarily eastern Alabama to help determine what those counties could do to create jobs and economic development. And I got involved early on, and what we found was a lot of those counties couldn't really compete in what we call the smokestack chasing or the silicon chip sweepstakes. But they did have what tourists and retirees were looking for. And so the question was, well, what sort of an impact do tourists and retirees have? So I began researching that and found that there was very little data out there. So we published a monograph in the mid-'80s that was one of the first of its type in the nation, where we just sort of compiled all the literature. But then we started doing our own primary surveys, and by 1988, we realized that this was a very viable economic development activity, especially in the rural parts of the South, for instance. Mm-hmm. And so we began hosting conferences on economic development, and were able to get the attention of the governor of Alabama in 1988, 89, and so I was released half-time from university for 4 years to work with the Alabama Department of Economic and Community Affairs to establish the first in-house or in-state government program to attract retirees. As you know, we had a tourism agency, and we had an agency that attracted industry. So we were able to get that in place at ADECA, and we ended up working with some 97 communities that wanted to be a part of that program. And we got a lot of national recognition for the state and for those efforts here at Jacksonville State. And so we just continued to research that and write reports and look at and study what other communities were doing around the nation and what planned retirement / resorts were doing and what impact they had.
Let me interrupt you. Were we the only university involved in this?
Well, there were some other schools that were doing things, but we had just sort of carved out a niche, especially in the state of Alabama. We were doing more than anybody else. Mm-hmm. But around the nation, there were some rural sociologists and some ag economists and a few geographers that were working on this, and maybe a couple of social gerontologists, but they were mostly looking at migration data and demographic data. Mm-hmm. So we were the first ones to really apply it toward economic development, and we've been in most of the national media, from New York Times, Wall Street Journal, to AARP's publication, which goes out to about 35 million people. It's been amazing. We've been in almost all the newspapers, major newspapers in the country, and most of the magazines like Smart Money and Time and Newsweek and a lot of those things. So it's been amazing, the publicity we've gotten on this. Wow. But it amazes me that the media feeds on itself. So people would want to do a story on this, and everybody likes to think about retirement. Well, they would, and retirement places, they would call me, and we would send them a little care package showing the other media that we'd been in. But so we have generated a lot of interest in that. And then I branched out and started studying retirement places, and have been out and worked some for the state of Arizona recently within the last 3 years, and looked at communities in their rural areas, places like Wilcox, Arizona, and Holbrook, and Lake Havasu City, and Yuma, Arizona. So
I've heard of Yuma, but the others
So
aren't on my list of places to visit.
And then also, since we helped develop a statewide program, I've done work in a lot of other states like West Virginia and Arkansas and South Carolina and Tennessee, and we get called on to speak a lot at
I was
places.
going to ask you about that, if you do a lot of presentations, and I'm sure that you must, because it sounds like from all that y'all done that you're kind of you're out in the forefront as far as all of this data and research goes.
Well, it's just the fact that we've worked on it since 1983. Over time you tend to develop some expertise in a subject, and we've just been around longer and stayed focused in that area. But we're very proud right now that over in Pat Shattuck's operation, we're hosting the American Association of Retirement Communities, which is an organization of planned and naturally occurring retirement communities. And we're going into our second year now of hosting that, and we've just had our second annual nationwide conference, and we just had it in Savannah, Georgia. Last year we were down in Biloxi, and this fall of 2002, we'll be in New Orleans, and so we're moving ahead with it.
Didn't they move their offices to here?
They sure did.
To our campus?
Sure did, from Western Kentucky. And so we're hosting that organization now, and we're getting calls from all over the country regularly. We're doing a newsletter that we put out quarterly that's going all over the nation, and we just got a contract from the Federal Economic Development Administration to write a how-to manual for attracting retirees for economic development. And so I'm in the process of compiling that, and hope to have it done by Christmas is my goal.
This Christmas?
Yes, we're looking to get that out there. It'll be dispensed all over the country, and we think we'll get a lot of mileage out of that. Once that hits, I think we'll get a lot more publicity for the state and for the university. So we're just, we're excited about what we're doing. We enjoy it, and we've learned a lot with it. And we're still very interested in it. Moving ahead.
That's just fascinating. And of course, I'm sure we could go on forever about the results of all of this information that you've gathered and that sort of thing. But as you said, we don't want to get a little too technical in all this.
I'll try to refrain from breaking out into a lecture here, Connie.
But yeah, that
since it's Christmas time here, okay?
That professor stuff just comes out in you. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a break right quick, and then we will come back and talk about some of the other tourism activities in the state of Alabama that you've been involved in. So stay with us here on Jim of the Hills, and we'll be right back with more of our conversation with Dr. Welcome back to Jim of the Hills. We've been talking about all of this research and the work that you've been doing on retirees and tourism as well. All right, let's continue on as we were really actually doing in the break.
Sure. Alabama didn't have any large planned communities for retirees, such as the Sun City or something of that nature. So we went to Dr. David Bronner in the late 80s and early 90s, and we asked, he is head of the state retirement system. Right. And it's like a $28 billion fund now. And
but we all like him a lot.
We do.
You're a state employee.
Yeah, sure. So we asked Dr. Bronner if he would finance a developer to come in and build like a Sun City in Alabama, 3,000 to 5,000 acre development. And he said, sure, go. Worked on some, but we weren't able to get them to come do a Sun City, Alabama, or Dixie, or whatever you want to call it. So not long after that, Dr. Bronner announced that he was going to do the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail, which is a series of 8 complexes, 5 54-hole facilities and 3 36-hole facilities, all public, all within 2 hours of each other, within 10 minutes of an interstate. Somewhere around a $250 million project. So it was done for 3 reasons: to attract tourists, to attract retirees, and to enhance the amenities for existing industry and attract new industry. But Dr. Bronner would give us credit for the attract retirees part of that. And we've seen a lot of housing develop around that golf trail. And we have a lot of tourists that are coming to the state, more driving now than since 9/11. But anyway, this golf trail has had an enormous impact on our economy in the state of Alabama since 1991. Tourism expenditures have gone from approximately $2.5 billion a year to approximately $6 billion a year, and a lot of that is because of the golf trail. And one thing that's important is that the state retirement systems owns $2 billion worth of Raycom television stations around not only in the United States but in Puerto Rico. And they also own $2 billion worth of a company called Community Newspaper Holdings, and that's some 200 small community newspapers around the nation. And because they are involved in those, the state of Alabama gets roughly $50 million a year in free advertising.
Wow. And
they use that to promote the space camp and the golf trail and those sorts of things. So that has really done a lot to enhance the image of Alabama, because we didn't really when people thought of Alabama, they thought of black and white TV in the 60s with water hoses and police dogs. And this golf trail has had something like 4,000 positive articles written all around the world, and featured in, one-page complete spreads in the Miami Herald, and just so on and so forth. But
I've actually been on airlines, been on a flight, and you always strike up a conversation with whoever's beside you, and I would say, that I was from Alabama or something, and you would be amazed at how many of those people would say, especially men, "Oh yeah, you've got that really nice golf trail," and it was amazing to me to begin with. But the more that I've been associated with it, because we have one nearby, the the Silver Lakes,
sure,
and I've been out there before for our tournaments or stuff, and there'll be people from Canada,
oh, yeah,
that are down here that are playing the trail and going to all the different golf courses. But it is amazing the publicity that the trail has gotten.
With the trail and the images and the promotions that they've done, combined with what I just told you about Raycom Television and the newspapers, they've helped to give Alabama some identity. Tennessee had country music, and Kentucky had horses,
racing,
but see, we really didn't have anything, so it's really helping to transform more of a positive image of Alabama, and it's getting people to come here that never would have come before. Silver Lakes is Calhoun County's #1 tourism attraction, and you will see all types of out-of-state tags, and that's another project we were able to get in on to help Dr. Bronner work out the deal to get that place built. So we're just, very interested in the tourism parts of it, because tourists later become retirees. The more you can get people to come and visit your place, the greater chance is and so retirees become permanent tourists, if you want to think of it that way. So a lot of what we have done has just been to continue to work within our region, our county. We've worked with Etowah County, and hopefully Gadsden's going to be mentioned in an interview I just did with Smart Money Magazine coming out in February. So we're always promoting the state when we can, and Jacksonville State University, and
well, now, a lot of people in this area are retirees anyway.
Sure.
I mean, this has been I've noticed since I've lived here, and I think a lot of it has been the military retirees, and of course from the university, and everyone just kind of likes the area and stays. But at one time I had heard that they might look at, and they being the infamous they, of the fort,
sure,
kind of being looked at as a type of retirement community.
When Fort McClellan was closed, there was money to do the Fort McClellan redevelopment plan, and I worked on that plan to look at what assets were there might be converted to support retirement, and we're starting to slowly see some of that take place now. But yes, in Jacksonville, we've had military retirees for years. General Watson lives just up the street from me, as a matter of fact. Was once the commander there. So there still is a lot of potential out at the old fort.
There's a friend of mine, her son lives over in Georgia, and it's kind of a planned community, but they call it a golf cart community. And everyone, instead of primarily driving cars, of course they have to drive cars to work and all that, but they go to the store, the grocery store, and to school and this sort of thing, riding golf carts. And I at one time thought, well, that'd be kind of a neat thing out there, because it is kind of its own little community. Well, it was.
Sure.
I mean, they had their own post office and school and grocery store and everything else.
Well, yeah, they have all sorts of housing, different types of housing. They have golf course, nature places for nature trails, and they have track, field. They have bowling, hospital, other types of clinics. So they have most everything you'd want in a retirement area.
Well, maybe that'll.
Especially once the new road gets built out to I-20.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, we're close enough to Atlanta and Birmingham that we can get to those places and get to the air transportation and the shopping and the more cultural attractions, yet we can still get back to our area where things are a little quieter and safer in a lot of ways. And I just wrote an article for the AERC newsletter talking about what impact I thought September 11 would have on retiree migration. And I think people are going to be moving more from the urban areas to get to the rural areas where they're safer and where they can learn their neighbors and feel a little more comfortable and not be so congested. Obviously, the terrorists are focusing more on the congested areas where they can have a bigger impact. So, yeah, we'll never be the same since that day, but I think there may be some more growth in the rural areas because of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we will take another break here, and we will be right back with more of our conversation with Dr. Mark Fagan. So stay with us here on Jim of the Hills. Welcome back to Jim of the Hills. We have to kind of wrap things up, but I do have a question for you. What do you envision as the future for the state of Alabama as far as retirement and that sort of thing?
Of course, I love this state, and
me too.
I think Alabama is just a great place to retire. We have the beaches, the white sandy beaches down in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, and then we have so many beautiful freshwater lakes like Lake Eufaula, Lake Gunnersville, Lake Martin,
so
Smith
just a
Lake.
little bit of everything.
We have the foothills of the mountains. We have a nice four-season climate, which we really don't have to shovel snow. It's a little hot in the summers, some, but hey, they have air conditioners, and you know, we have a lot of friendly people. We're growing, and we have the commercial things you would want. We're close to the beaches. We're close to the Smoky Mountains. We're close to Atlanta, where we can
It's
fly.
close to heaven.
Yeah, and you know.
We have to finish up, but I appreciate you being here, Mark, and we look forward to carrying on this conversation again some other time. And thank you all for watching here on Jim of the Hills.